Just when everyone thought the situation couldn't get more intense, Taehyung and Jungkook finally respond, and their words change everything. Fans are stunned, HYBE is silent, and the internet can't stop talking. What did they say? Why now? And what does this mean for the future? Stay with us because the truth behind their response is way deeper than anyone expected. And this story is far from over. The world felt impossibly loud the moment Taehyung and Jungkook's response went public. Notifications lit up like fireworks, headlines shifted instantly, and social media platforms flooded with reactions. Some were shocked, some emotional, some furious, but none of it felt real to them yet. Inside the quiet room, it was just the two of them, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, trying to process what they had just done. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair, letting out a shaky breath. "It still doesn't feel real," he whispered, staring at the floor instead of Jungkook. His voice carried a mix of relief and fear, like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether they had just jumped or learned to fly. Jungkook leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on him. "It's real," he said softly. "And we knew this moment had to come eventually. We couldn't stay silent forever." Taehyung finally lifted his gaze, and for the first time in days, Jungkook could see something new in his expression. A quiet courage, small but undeniable. "Do you regret it?" Taehyung asked, his tone fragile, as if bracing for an answer that might shatter everything. Jungkook shook his head slowly. "No. Not for 1 second." Silence settled again, but it wasn't the tense silence from before. This one felt calmer, grounded, as if their decision had created a new kind of air between them. One they could finally breathe in. A soft vibration broke the moment. Taehyung glanced at his phone, eyes widening as he read the message. "HYBE wants a meeting," he murmured, voice barely audible. Jungkook stiffened slightly. The inevitable was here. "When?" he asked. "Tonight." There was no time to prepare. No time to rehearse answers or analyze reactions. Whatever happened now would shape everything moving forward. Their careers, their image, their relationship with the company and the world watching outside. Jungkook stood, then reached out his hand toward Taehyung. "We go together," he said. Taehyung stared at his hand for a moment, not because he hesitated, but because the meaning behind it was deeper than the gesture itself. Then slowly, he placed his hand in Jungkook's. Their fingers locked, steady, purposeful. In that moment, it didn't matter how loud the world had become. It didn't matter who agreed or disagreed. All that mattered was that this time, they weren't facing it alone. As they headed toward the door, Taehyung paused, eyes drifting once more across the room that had held their fears, their doubts, and now their decision. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "This is where everything truly begins." And together they stepped forward. Taehyung didn't go home that night. Neither did Jungkook. They stayed in that quiet room where the world felt paused, where there were no cameras, no headlines, no rumors. Just the sound of their breathing and the truth hanging between them. Jungkook sat beside Taehyung, still trying to process everything that had been said. His heart raced, but for once it wasn't because of fear, it was because he finally knew. He finally heard Taehyung say the words he'd waited years to hear. Taehyung looked down at his hands, voice low but steady. "You have no idea how long I wanted to tell you. But every time I tried, something stopped me. It will be the fans, the rules, everything." Jungkook shook his head gently. "You didn't have to explain. I understood." Taehyung looked up then, eyes sharp, frustrated, emotional. "No, you deserve an explanation." Jungkook didn't speak. He let him continue. Taehyung took a slow breath. "I wasn't scared of you," he said. "I was scared of what you meant to me." Silence. Real heavy silence. Jungkook's heartbeat felt like it echoed across the room. Taehyung looked away again, eyes glossy, not because he was sad, but because he was being honest. "You're the person who could ruin everything for me," he whispered. "My career. My peace. My control. Because you make me feel everything I've tried to avoid." Jungkook breathed out, soft and shaky, almost a laugh, almost a sob. "So why now?" he whispered. Taehyung finally looked straight at him. "Because I'm tired of pretending." And there it was, the sentence that changed everything. Jungkook felt something inside him crack. Not pain, not confusion, but relief so strong it felt like oxygen after drowning. Slowly, he reached forward and took Taehyung's hand. Taehyung didn't pull away this time. their fingers intertwined like they'd been waiting years maybe, for this exact moment. You don't have to be scared anymore, Jungkook said quietly. Not of me. Not of this. Taehyung swallowed, voice barely above a whisper. And if the world finds out? Jungkook smiled, not playful, not teasing but soft and genuine. Then we face it together. Taehyung looked at their joined hands, then at Jungkook, and finally he nodded. Together, he repeated. But just when the moment felt warm enough to break every wall between them, Taehyung said something unexpected. There's one more thing you need to know. Jungkook's expression shifted, curiosity turning into alertness. What is it? Taehyung hesitated. Then his voice dropped, lower than a whisper. Someone already knows about us and they've been waiting. Jungkook froze. Who? Taehyung exhaled, eyes dark with something between fear and certainty. HYBE. Jungkook felt the air shift, like the room tightened around them. HYBE. The one word that had the power to destroy careers, rewrite narratives and control everything from hairstyles to sentences spoken in public. He stared at Taehyung, trying to read the truth behind his expression. What do you mean they know? Jungkook asked quietly. Taehyung leaned back, looking exhausted, not physically but emotionally, like he'd been carrying this secret too long. They've been monitoring everything, he said. Our messages, our private schedules, even where we go when we're off-grid. Jungkook's jaw tightened. We knew they monitored us, he replied. But knowing and knowing everything aren't the same. Taehyung nodded slowly. I didn't realize how deep it was until a few months ago. Someone from the internal team approached me. His voice dropped. They asked if what was happening between us was real. Jungkook froze. And what did you say? Taehyung lifted his eyes. I lied. I told them we were just close. Just friends. Like always. Jungkook's chest tightened, not because of the lie, but because Taehyung had been forced to make it. Taehyung looked away, voice quieter now. But they didn't seem convinced. They said rumors were already forming online. They said if things didn't stop, they'd have to intervene. Jungkook scoffed under his breath. Intervene? The word tasted bitter. Taehyung continued. They want to control the narrative before it gets out of hand. Jungkook leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Taehyung closed his eyes. Because I was trying to protect you. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Jungkook wasn't angry, not really. Hurt, yes. But beneath the confusion and fear, there was something stronger. Trust. He reached out and lifted Taehyung's chin gently. Don't protect me by shutting me out, Jungkook said. Protect me by letting me choose. Taehyung opened his eyes, full of emotion, full of conflict. What if choosing me cost you everything? He whispered. Jungkook didn't hesitate. Then it means everything was never really mine. Taehyung stared at him like he was seeing him for the first time. Not the idol, not the member, not the role, but the man. The one who wasn't afraid to lose the world if it meant keeping the one thing that mattered. A moment passed, long, quiet, heavy. Then Taehyung moved closer, until their foreheads touched and no words, just breathing. Just the truth between them. Finally, Taehyung spoke again, soft, cautious but steady. There's a meeting scheduled tomorrow, he said. HYBE wants to talk about us. And I don't think it's going to be friendly. Jungkook exhaled slowly. So this is where everything changes. Taehyung nodded once. Are you ready? Jungkook didn't smile this time, he didn't need to. Instead, he squeezed Taehyung's hand. Whatever happens, he said, I won't let them decide our story. Taehyung's voice trembled just slightly, not from fear but from belief. Then tomorrow we walk in together. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, they weren't just members of the same group. They were a decision, a risk, a promise. And tomorrow the world or HYBE would finally confront it. The next day arrived faster than either of them expected. Morning light spilled across the city, calm and quiet, completely unaware of the storm building behind closed doors. Taehyung and Jungkook stood outside the HYBE building, both masked, both hooded, both pretending to be just two employees arriving for another normal schedule. But nothing about today was normal. Jungkook could feel Taehyung's hand brushing his. Not close enough to hold, but close enough to feel the warmth. A silent reminder, we're here. Together. Security bowed, letting them in immediately, and the doors closed behind them with a sound that felt too final. The hallway was empty, sterile, and painfully quiet. Taehyung swallowed once, his voice low. They're waiting upstairs. Good, Jungkook replied, steady. Let them wait. Taehyung looked at him, not questioning but impressed. They walked toward the elevators, and the moment the doors closed, Jungkook finally spoke. No matter what they say, he murmured, eyes straight ahead. Don't shrink yourself. You don't owe them an apology for being human. Taehyung turned his head slightly. And you don't owe them permission to feel something. The elevator chimed, ending the moment. They stepped into a conference room already filled with tension. Executives sat around the table. Arms crossed, expressions cold, eyes sharp with expectation. Phones were on silent, notebooks open, cameras ready. Not the kind that filmed, but the kind that observed. Someone cleared their throat. Sit. Jungkook and Taehyung didn't rush. They pulled out chairs and sat side by side, not spaced apart like the company would have preferred. Already a statement. A woman near the front adjusted her glasses. There's been growing concern, she began, her tone polished and calculated. Regarding your behavior. Taehyung lifted an eyebrow. Behavior? Yes. Another responded, leaning forward. You two have been seen together more frequently outside official schedules. Private trips. Matching accessories. Subtle but noticeable physical affection in public. Jungkook let out a short, humorless sound. So being close is now a violation? No, the woman responded calmly. But public perception matters. And recently, online speculation about your relationship has increased. There are threads, videos, edits, theories. And? Jungkook asked, silence stretched. Then the man at the head of the table spoke, slowly, like someone choosing every word with intention. We need to know if these rumors are true. There it was. The question everyone already knew, but no one had dared ask directly. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. Jungkook looked back. And without hesitation, Jungkook answered, what difference would the answer make? The room shifted, chairs stiffened, expressions tightened. The man leaned back. If it's true, it affects contracts, brand deals, group image, public stability, fanbase loyalty. It could jeopardize future releases, tours, and long-term planning. Taehyung exhaled slowly. So what you're saying is, if we're close, we're profitable. If we're real, we're dangerous. No one spoke, because the truth didn't need confirmation. It was already loud enough. Jungkook rested his arms on the table, gaze firm, voice calm but unshakable. We're not here to deny anything, he said. We're here because we're done pretending that distance equals safety. Taehyung nodded. And because whatever comes next, we want to be part of the decision, not the damage control. The executives exchanged looks, some frustrated, some surprised, some unreadable. Finally, the head executive sighed. Then understand this, he said. If you continue down this path, there will be consequences. Taehyung didn't flinch. Jungkook didn't look away, he only asked one question. For us? Or for the image you built around us? No one answered. But the silence, that was the real response. And it was louder than any yes or no could ever be. The silence in the room felt heavier than any threat could. Taehyung shifted slightly, not out of fear, but out of impatience, like he was tired of everyone pretending this conversation wasn't long overdue. One of the younger executives finally spoke up, his tone softer, almost careful. We're not trying to punish either of you, he said. But we have to consider the scale of what this could become. The backlash, the headlines, the accusations, the wars between fandoms, the sponsors pulling out, the political and cultural pressure. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. So you're saying the world isn't ready? The man nodded slowly. Yes. And we're asking, no, we're warning you to understand what's at stake. Taehyung leaned forward, fingers laced together. What if the world never becomes ready unless someone forces it to? The older executive shook his head. This isn't just about you. This affects everyone connected to the brand. Jungkook let out a long breath, not defeated but controlled. And what about us? He asked quietly. When does it become about us? The room froze again. For years they had been expected to smile, perform, obey, exist in a box carefully built for them. Fans saw freedom. The industry saw ownership. Taehyung broke the silence next. We didn't ask to be symbols, he said softly. We didn't ask to be the version of us that makes everyone else comfortable. Then what do you want? Someone demanded. And this time Jungkook didn't hesitate. To live without lying. The effect of those 5 words was immediate. A wave of tension hit the room like wind before a storm. One of the stricter executives leaned forward, voice sharp. Do you understand what will happen if you go public? There will be backlash. There will be hate. Some fans will leave. Your image will change. Your popularity might drop. The internet will explode. Everything you built could collapse. Jungkook didn't blink. If something collapses just because we tell the truth, then it was never real strength. Taehyung looked at him then, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them, something stronger than fear. Enough, the lead executive said, standing. We will give you both time to think. But understand, this decision is not just emotional. It is strategic. And once the public hears even a hint of confirmation, there is no going back. He closed his folder. We expect your final response in 72 hours. Just like that, the meeting was over. Executives stood, whispered, gathered their papers, and left the room one by one. The door closed behind the last of them, and suddenly, the world was quiet again. Jungkook leaned back in his chair, exhaling shakily. 72 hours, he murmured. They make it sound like a countdown. Taehyung turned in his chair to face him, not as a member, not as a colleague, but as someone whose life was intertwined with his. It is, he said gently. But maybe we needed one. Jungkook looked down at the table, then at Taehyung's hand resting beside his. Slowly, very slowly, he placed his own hand over it. Not to hide, not to test, but to claim. Taehyung's voice dropped to a whisper meant only for him. So what do we do now? Jungkook lifted his head. Eyes steady, voice quiet, but full of conviction. We stop letting fear make decisions for us. Taehyung swallowed, emotion tightening his throat. And if everything falls apart? Jungkook gave the smallest, softest smile. Then we rebuild it together. For the first time since the meeting began, Taehyung breathed fully, not with anxiety but with clarity. This wasn't just a crisis. It was a crossroads. 72 hours. 3 days. A decision that could rewrite their careers, their identities, their future, either into disaster or history. And as they stood to leave, walking side by side, not hiding, not pretending, both of them knew. No matter what the world expected, this time the choice would be theirs.